Hey, hello. How's it going? It's Emily. And today we are going to be continuing on in our adventures to be reading all of Sarah J. Maas's books before her newest release comes out in October. I guess I'd been waiting for an excuse to do exactly that, and now we have one. And if this is the first one you're watching, I do have a few of these further back on my channel starting a few months ago. And we started with Akatar and Akamath, and then went on to Aka War in the first Throne of Glass book in the second vlog, and then the third vlog was Crown of Midnight and the Assassin's Blade, and now we are starting with Heir of Fire. So this is definitely not kind of where the start of this series, this vlog series is, so if you want to catch up, be sure to watch those other episodes, but we are jumping into Heir of Fire, and I am absolutely loving this. I feel like the other books, I've enjoyed the other books, but definitely can see the imperfections in some of the other books and see that her writing was growing and that she was very young when she wrote those books. But I feel like she's getting her stride here in Heir of Fire, and it's really cool to see. I am a solid chunk and not quite halfway through, but maybe 40%, 45% of the way through. So let's catch up a little bit. So again, I will just briefly talk about the first book, but again, if you would like to catch up, I'm not going to go into much detail about previous books in each vlog because I have vlogs about those. But we're following Selena Sardathian, who is an assassin who, for reasons, is imprisoned in a mine and gets tapped to be part of this competition to be the champion of the king, basically the king's right-hand assassin. And this is an interesting thing for her because she has reasons to hate the king, but she's been promised her freedom from the mine if she is able to win this competition and serve the king for a certain number of years. It's a few years, 3-4 years, and she can get her freedom. So really she's working towards her freedom and is willing to do things that she wouldn't really want to in order to get that. And so we are starting to go in a different direction in Crown of Midnight, and we're kind of seeing where things are going, and we're kind of shifting a little bit. And then the Assassin's Blade kind of goes back and tells a story and answers a couple of questions that were kind of lingering from the first two books. You know, she mentioned some things, but there are a couple of key questions that hadn't really been answered as of the first couple of books, and Assassin's Blade goes back and answers those questions. So it's a prequel novel, and you can read it first. I chose to read it third. Had fun doing that. I feel like it could have been a fun experience either way, and there are reasons to do it one way or the other, just depending on what you want. I had fun reading it third. And so again, now we are here at Heir of Fire. We've started to go in a different direction. We are exploring a new part of the world. And Selena has been given an assignment, and that's part of why an official assignment, and that's part of why she's going to this other part of the world. But she really has her own secret reason for wanting to go there. And we are finding things more out about kind of her backstory, who she is, and just learning some more things as we're going along here. But she has her own reasons and own things to do while she's where we are. And so as we're opening up, she is in this new place. She comes across a new character that we're introduced to, Rowan, and is meeting some important people in this new place. And so she essentially needs, for reasons, she needs to get some information that some of these politically high up people have. And so in order to do that, she needs to prove herself. And she needs to prove herself to Rowan. And so Rowan is going to be the judge of whether or not she's ready to go to another location that we are hearing referred to. And at this new location is where this politically important person has promised to give her this information. And so, her future is kind of in Rowan's hands, or at least the timeline of how long it's going to take for her to actually get from where she is to where she needs to be in order to receive this information, and needs to, again, prove herself. So she's training and needs to, train with Rowan, be able to accomplish or do certain things in order to get his approval or to kind of get his support in moving on in this process. And so again, we're kind of setting up, and again, I know this is a long series and we're kind of in it for a long haul. So we have had this shift in direction from Crown of Midnight, and again, took a little bit of a rewind in Assassin's Blade, but we're back to kind of where this story is pivoting into new political situations. And so it's taking some time, right? It needs to take some time to recalibrate. And again, we're in a new place, so we're meeting new characters. We also have an additional perspective in here of following someone who is in a different part of the world, and her group has been ostracized, and they are trying to essentially claim their lands back. And so we're also having this additional perspective come in, and with the goal of trying to, they need to get certain things in order to be able to take back their lands. And one of those things is wyverns. So we have some wyverns in here, which is really fun. And I always love a dragon or wyvern being in a story. And I didn't realize that, that was in here. So that was fun. That was a fun element. And so that's a fun perspective, too, that we're adding, because they are selecting or being selected by these wyverns and starting to train with them. And so it's not quite clear how this perspective, at least to me, it's not quite clear how this perspective is going to intersect with anything or everything else that's going on. And so, I mean, I'm sure it will, but it's taking time, right? So we're building that storyline up. We're still following Dorian and Kale from, who we know in the first couple of books. There's still important stuff going on back where they are. So we're kind of in three different directions of where we were, where Selena has gone to and what she needs to accomplish there, and then this other added perspective from a completely different set of people. And so it's been really interesting. And I'm, as I said, really enjoying what's going on. I feel like I'm equally invested in all three at this point of what's going on in these different perspectives. And, what's going on with Dorian and Kale is also really interesting. Again, I'm not going to talk super spoiler about anything, so I'm just saying we're adding a perspective and that we're in different places, but I'm not going to give too many details. But what's going on with Dorian and Kale is also very interesting in terms of how it's going to intersect with what Selena's doing. And so I'm intrigued to see what we're building up here too, now that we've had this pivot and had this kind of change in direction. But I'm loving it. I'm having a grand time with all three of these sets of perspectives that we're getting and what we're going to kind of build towards, and I'm excited to see it all come together. So having a grand time, if I do say so myself. And I don't think there's really much else to add, but I feel like she is hitting her stride here with writing, with giving texture to the characters, and bringing new characters in to kind of bring out different elements of these characters, and adding layers, adding backstory, having different characters play off of each other. I feel like she's really hitting her stride, and it's just really cool to see, because I enjoyed the first three. Like, I had fun with them. But I feel like we're getting kind of an up in quality in the writing here as well. In addition to it just being fun, I feel like we're really starting to kind of go up here and really, just add some extra flavor or texture. Also I'm realizing that there's literally this on the cover, so I should have figured that there was some sort of wyvern or dragon type situation going on, but I guess I just was not paying close attention to the cover. So, we love that. So not much else to add at the moment, but I'm really enjoying our characters and very excited to continue. And as I do so, I will keep you updated with any additional thoughts about how things are intersecting or coming together. And I'm just really excited to continue. So, So we're in the home stretch of Heir of Fire. I was able to read a solid chunk of this yesterday, going to and from a potluck that was downtown, so we had quite a metro ride. But look at me being social. She never does this, but I went to a potluck yesterday, and it was fun. We had a good time. And so, it's got some listening time there. Went to a coffee shop on Saturday, had some listening time. So we're in the home stretch. We are, the part below the bookmark there is what I have left. So we're going to finish her up. We're going to finish up Heir of Fire, and then I have Queen of Shadows ready to go in the wings, and very excited about this. So another thing that I want to mention that I'm loving about Heir of Fire is that we have another bit of a murder mystery on our hands here. So as she's training with Rowan, Selena and Rowan are kind of investigating some half-fae deaths that are pretty brutal, and their bodies are just kind of being left in different places to be found. And so they're trying to puzzle together what's happening, like who or what is killing these half-fae, why are their bodies being left where they are, all of that. And so I love a good murder mystery, even if it's just a small element of what's going on, and it's a small part of something fitting into a larger puzzle piece here. And so even if it's just a small part, like, it's always fun to have, at least for me, always fun to have a murder mystery in a fantasy setting. So I'm enjoying that aspect as well. Again, I'm not going to give any details or spoiler things, but we are continuing with their training and trying to figure that out as kind of an additional thing going on in their perspective. We are continuing to follow Manon, who is part of this group of witches, basically, who are trying to train these wyverns. So that's been fun. I love when we have a bond between a writer and a dragon or wyvern, and kind of that training process and them getting to know each other a bit. And it's a smaller part of this, but still there. I'm still living for it. And then Dorian and Kale trying to figure things out on their end in Otterland. So just having a good time, but we are going to finish her out. We're going to finish out Heir of Fire. I've got a few things to do, so I'm going to listen while doing those, but I think we're then going to have some coffee and wrap this book up together. And then, as I said, Queen of Shadows will be right here ready for me to give her a start. So I'm excited, but let's get to it. that was such a wild ending. I'm so excited to continue with this series. Yeah, just love what we're setting up. I love where we're going. I love the character growth with a few different characters, particularly Selena and Dorian, doing what they're going to be doing. And I'm not going to say anything more, but I absolutely love the ending. And as I said, I'm very excited to go into Queen of Shadows. So I'm just going to hop right in, and we're going to start Queen of Shadow. And I'll check in once I am a little bit into Queen of Shadows and have some thoughts. So here to wrap up this vlog, and you're probably like, Emily, you just finished Heir of Fire. Why are you wrapping up this vlog? You haven't checked in on Queen of Shadows. You would be correct. So I started Queen of Shadows on, I think at the very end of June 30th, and then read a little bit on the 1st and 2nd, but didn't feel like it was enough to check in yet. I didn't have enough to say and wanted to just read a bit more, but then I forgot that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th were going to be busy. It's a holiday weekend. We had some people in town. It was just not a good time to check in. And I probably should have vlogged a little bit of our adventures, including going to see some of the fireworks, but whatever. We were having a good time. And so I was reading this very slowly throughout those days. Finally finished it on July 5th. I haven't taken that long to finish a book in a long time. But it felt like it took a long time. That was not anything to do with my feelings about the book or my enjoyment. I was having so much fun reading this. It was just due to the circumstances. And I feel like in Throne of Glass, we have that initial setup that I've talked about with the competition and becoming the king's champion, like trying to become the king's champion in that trial. We kind of pivot in the second book, like throughout the course of the second book, and by the end, it's kind of clear where we're pivoting to. And then, Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows kind of really taking that pivot and going through some major arcs to accomplish some things. But I feel like we accomplish quite a few things by the end of Queen of Shadows, so I'm wondering where the rest of the 3 are going to head. Like, there's obviously still stuff going on, but we've resolved quite a few things, and so I'm curious where we're going to go and what the ramifications of what we've accomplished are. Are the consequences going to be not what we thought they were? Is that going to get us into even more trouble? Like, what's going to be happening in the next 3 books? I'm very curious to find out because of how much we wrap up in here. But I talked quite a bit about Heir of Fire and had some thoughts about the ending. It was a pretty wild ending. So in Queen of Shadows, we're really taking that ending and, kind of moving, jumps in right as Heir of Fire leaves off, and we're kind of jumping in and trying to, fix some things that are going on, rescue some people, or find some information. We're continuing to try to find information and physical objects that relate to kind of the overall mission of bringing magic back. And so, that's a lot of what we're doing in here is we're trying to deal with the ramifications of what happened at the end of Heir of Fire. That kind of takes a while. We have kind of some side missions that we're working on here, and getting some information together, getting some physical things together, getting some support together and allies together to kind of come up with a plan to bring magic back and then execute said plan. And so, a lot is happening in here. By the way, I hope you can't hear that truck that's outside. Hopefully the microphone is just focusing on my voice and you can't hear that, but apologies if you can. And so a lot is happening in Queen of Shadows, and I was just having so much fun. We're continuing on with what was happening in Dorian and Kale's perspective, which is pretty wild. In Manon's perspective, we're getting more information about how these witches and they're working with their wyverns. That's part of it. But then we're really in this one starting to see how they're going to fit into the larger picture of what's going on. We don't really get much of that in Heir of Fire. Really, in Queen of Shadows is where we start to find out how they kind of intersect with everything else that's going on in the world. And then, of course, of course, Selena trying to, again, get information, get things that she needs, get allies, have come up with this plan, kind of bring the crew together. I really love the found family in here. I'm loving the politics. I'm loving where things are going. As I said, I am very curious about what's going to be happening in the next 3 books and kind of where we go from here, because I feel like some things were kind of wrapped up, but I feel like there's still more things to do, and I feel like we have an opportunity to kind of introduce some other major things going on, but I wonder if that is going to be the case. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining me on another adventure through part of Sarah J. Maas's universe. And of course, in the next one, we will be tackling Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. And I will be trying to do the tandem read. We will see how this goes. Maybe I will abandon my attempts to do the tandem read, but we're going to give it a go. And I think it'll be interesting kind of with where things are left off. I've heard that in each of those books, we're kind of following, they take place at the same time, but we're following what different characters are doing in different parts of the world in those books. And that's why you can kind of tandem read that to kind of get the chronological perspective of what's happening. We'll talk about that more in the next blog once I actually kind of get my bearings about how I need to divide things up to do the tandem read. But I think it'll be interesting, and it kind of makes sense based on where we left off. It kind of makes sense that that's kind of how the next 2 books are. But please do subscribe and join me on continuing the adventure through Sarah J. Maas's books, and see what happens when I tackle the tandem read. And I don't know if there's too much in terms of spoiler thoughts that I really want to talk about. I think I just kind of want to keep these spoiler free, to be honest. I don't know. That's just feeling like kind of the right vibe. And so I'm going to leave this one spoiler free and might continue to do so. But I am having so much fun with this series. I'm so in love. I'm obsessed, and just having a really wonderful time whenever I get back into this world. So very excited to continue with the tandem read. As I said, subscribe for more bookish content and to continue those adventures. I will leave my Instagram down below. I will also leave my Pango store with some used books for sale, my Etsy store, as well as more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.